Hey there, Michael here. If you are an executive coach or thinking about getting into coaching, then stick around after the episode. I have something for you. In the meantime, here we go. You want to know where poor leadership comes from a psychology and neuroscience perspective? And further than that, do you want to know how to identify and overcome that within yourself? Well, then this is the episode for you.
Welcome to Leadership Mindset 2.0. Practical neuroscience and psychology to transform you from a tactical doer into a strategic leader. Here is your host, former social entrepreneur of the year and coach to some of the world's top executives, R. Michael Anderson.
Okay, I hope you're ready for this. We are going to learn and go deep into the foundational principle that everything that I teach is based on. All the different tools and skills and everything are just extrapolation of this one principle. And it is ego and authentic self. Now, you got to be careful because the words ego and authentic self are used so many different places and they have different definitions depending on who you're talking to. The word ego even has different definitions in different schools of psychology. So we're going to go deep into what that means, how it affects you as a leader, and that's going to be in this first episode. Then we have a second episode coming out next week that's going to talk about how to utilize ego authentic self with other people. You might have heard me talk about, because I teach psychology and neuroscience, that's what you're learning here. Everything here is applicable to you and everybody else. But as powerful leaders who really work on their relationship with themselves, what we always do is lead from the front, that we work on applying these for ourselves so that we can model the appropriate behaviors for other people. And that's really what we're going to go deep into today. Now, what is ego authentic self? Now, to break things down in a very simplistic way, your consciousness has two aspects to it. You are in your authentic self when you and your body perceive that you are safe. That is what you might call your natural resting place. However, when when I say your body and your mind perceives that there is a danger, a threat, your state gets triggered into the ego. This is because of how you're wired. Because for the last 20,000 years, up till maybe 2 or 3 generations ago, we had to physically protect ourselves. So it was really important for us to enter an ego state. Now, what happens when we enter an ego state is this little guy in the brain called the amygdala, who's always looking out for problems. And it's a little almond-sized guy, I don't know what it is, gland thingy in your brain that is always looking out for problems. When the amygdala perceives that there is a threat, it sends a signal to the HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal glands, who send chemicals into your bloodstream that make you on alert and honestly ready to fight. So this is actually the fight, flight, or freeze, if you've heard of that. And it's not fight or flight. It's actually fight, flight, or freeze. Some people say fawn as well. Let's not get into all those details. Doesn't matter. And the reason is when you were, a caveman or cave woman or cave person, whatever, walking around the plains, I don't even know where cave people walked, and say you were really hungry and you saw a banana tree and you're like, oh, hey, I'm going to go eat a banana and get nourished. But then there was a man-eating Velociraptor next to the banana tree. What is it more important for your brain to stick onto? The tasty banana or the raptor that's going to rip your heart out? Of course, the man-eating dinosaur. So that, and you needed things like adrenaline and cortisol in your bloodstream so you could run faster, so you'd be more on alert, etc. You focus. And you'll know, so entering your ego is actually a chemical reaction. You'll know this because if you were ever, let's say you're in a car, and whether you're driving or passenger, doesn't matter, and you're on the highway, and then all of a sudden you, out of the corner of your eye, you see a car that's about to you think ram into you. It happens so quick. You think they're going to ram into you, and it's like, whoa, but they miss you by a couple inches. And then 10 seconds later, you realize that the danger's over. You mentally realize that the danger is over, and you're not going to die. You're not going to get into the car crash, anything else. However, you're still shaking a bit, right? Your adrenaline is still up. That's because whenever your body perceives there's a danger, you get these chemicals into your bloodstream. Now, the problem is your amygdala and the HPA axis doesn't know the difference between that man-eating dinosaur and when you're in your senior leadership meeting and the CEO asks you a question you weren't prepared for. Your body reacts the same way. There's not much neurological difference between potentially needing to get into a fight and having something happen, for example, like that at work. You get triggered into your ego. Now, why is this important? If I was teaching a class, I would say, hey, what are some poor leadership traits? Here's what people say. Micromanage. That people get angry. They snap at other people. They blame other people. They don't take responsibility. They blame other people. They're not transparent. We can pretty much all agree on that, correct? Now, do you see how all these are behaviors of people who are trying to protect themselves? All poor leadership comes from people acting in their ego. It's as simple as that. Now, and stick with me on this. On the other side is your authentic self. When you're not in your ego, when you perceive things are safe, you're in your authentic self. Now, the authentic self is when you're relaxed, when you're calm, when you're connected. Because the thing is, when you're in your ego and you're around other people, they get in their ego too. Which makes sense, because if we look about, again, our wiring from the last 20,000 years, when we are in our ego, when we're ready to fight, because fight is protection, and then other people do that too, because when you ran across somebody, when you're in the middle of a jungle and you're this cave person, and they were ready to fight, you had to be ready to fight too. So people in their ego tried to bring other people into their ego. Now, on the other side is when you're on your authentic self. You perceive that you're safe. And the thing is, when you are in your authentic self, though, that's who people like, that's who people respect, that's who people trust, that's who people want on their team, that's who people want leading them, is people in their authentic self. Because intuitively, they're connected. You're connected, you trust. It's like, okay, I understand this person. I'm safe with this person. And a lot of life in a certain way is about safety. Now, when you're in your authentic self, you have more energy, you're more creative, you see more possibilities, etc. And then, if I was teaching a class, I would ask, what are some characteristics of great leaders? Great leaders, they empower others. They give praise. They, honestly hold people accountable from a positive place. They are transparent. Do you see how all of those are behaviors and actions of people who know that they're safe? You can't properly do those things when you're trying to protect yourself. So great leadership and positive leadership comes from people that are living in their authentic self. It's as simple as that. Your whole job as a leader, I'm breaking it down really simple, and it sounds too simple to be true, but it is understanding when you're in your ego and shifting to the authentic self, and then also understanding when people are in their ego and shifting them to their authentic self or handling them from their ego, which we're going to talk about next episode. Right now, we're just going to focus on you. Because when you can realize when you are defensive, when you are on attack, when you are trying to cover for yourself, when you don't feel safe, and you can realize that and shift back into your authentic self, you're going to be amazing. That's who people are going to look up to. One of my coaches, Rich Litvin, I just was taking a course with him, and he talks about, and this really rang true. Almost every single situation, the leader needs to be the calmest one in the room. There's a couple small exceptions, but let's not even worry about those exceptions. The leader is the calmest one in the room. And calmness comes from people that are strong in their authentic self. And to be strong in your authentic self, you have to have resilience to either move yourself back or not move into the ego. And let me also explain, being in the authentic self is really powerful and it's strong. Because when you are in your authentic self and you are connected to yourself, that's when you hold people accountable. It's not that you're weak and let people roll over you. You're like, hey, I'm in my authentic self, do whatever you want. No, it's that, because how many times does somebody do something that's not appropriate or not correct, and you either postpone that conversation, which is the ego, because the ego doesn't like conflict, right? And so you don't have a conversation because you're trying to keep yourself safe, or you do it, but you don't do it well. You make it personal, you attack them, and they don't take it well. That's why when you're in your authentic self and somebody does something that needs corrected, you have enough resilience within yourself to talk to them right away, but also to do it with a positive or a neutral energy, and to not make it personal, and really to do it on their behalf and on your team's behalf, and in a way make it a positive. But you can only do that from your authentic self, because if you show up in your ego and you're angry, you're defensive, or whatever, however the ego shows, they are going to get defensive. And when two people are in their ego in a conversation, nothing is going to get accomplished because they're both trying to protect themselves. So you need to get good at staying in your authentic self. And look, I'm going to be honest with you. You move into your ego multiple times per day, probably like 100 or 1,000 or whatever that is. You are going to continue, no matter how much work you do with me or on yourself, unless you go meditate in a cave for the next 30 years and never leave that cave, you're going to pop into your ego. And even if you do it for 30 years and you leave that cave, you go back into society, you're going to jump into your ego. So we all will do that. But I'm going to ask you a couple questions. When you move into your ego, when something happens and you shift into your ego, how do you feel? For example, how does that feel in your chest? When I shift into my ego, I feel like a constriction in my chest, or I feel like I almost disassociate it with my body. This takes some people a little while to get their head around, but when you can understand what it feels like in your body and it starts to happen, then you can cut it off. Because when we're in our authentic self and something triggers us and we start moving into our ego and we can catch it, we stop the momentum. So it stops moving. So that's why I asked, what does it feel like in your body? Because if you can realize that over the next couple of days, then you're going to be able to stop it and either move it to neutral or back in your authentic self. Because it's like a gauge. You can never be in your authentic self and your ego at the same time. You're either a lot in your ego, a little in your ego, you're neutral, a little in your authentic self, or a lot in your authentic self. And then also, what are your behaviors? How do you act when you're in your ego? For me, I get almost like a bully and I get into a massive control, or I withdraw and I take myself out of the situation. So that's my question to you. What are your behaviors when you enter your ego? And then be aware anytime you're getting into there to correct it. So, dear leader, that is my challenge for you. Take a minute. Think about, hey, when do I get in my ego? Maybe it's around a certain person. Maybe, hey, the CFO from this client, she's a real bully. So it triggers me into my ego because I'm already defensive before we even start the conversation. Maybe you don't like talking in front of groups, so you go into your ego there. Maybe you don't like one-on-ones. Maybe you don't like this kind of meeting. So what situations do you already trigger into your ego? And then the number one hack I can give you is, and this works anytime, just check in with yourself. Say, right now, am I in my ego or am I in my authentic self? Because when you do that, you often become present and you at least move to neutral or your authentic self. So maybe you're going to jump on a phone call or a meeting and you're like, oh, right now, where am I at? Oh my gosh, I'm a little bit in my ego. Why? This project, it might be a little bit behind budget. This customer might jump on me a little bit. Okay, well, hold on. I'm just going to breathe a little bit. I'm safe. I'm good. And see, I just recentered myself. And so anytime you can just check in with yourself, am I in my ego or my authentic self? Or maybe I prepare myself for a meeting or a phone call and say, hey, this might be a bit tough. I'm going to really work to stay in my authentic self. And as you sometimes fall into your ego, that's okay. You're human. That's still going to happen. And just almost laugh at it. Have a little bit of fun. Like, oh, there I go. I'm into my ego. That's it. It's just trying to protect me. And that little conversation with yourself can be transformative. And that's all you have to do for the rest of your life, and you got life handled. I wish it was that easy. I still get caught in my ego multiple times per day, and this is a lifetime lesson. But we all got to start somewhere. All right, leaders, go out there and just for right now, just be aware, when are you in your ego, when you're your authentic self, and make that subtle but profound shift. Know that you're safe and live from that powerful, authentic self. Hey, one more thing before we go. If you ever thought about executive coaching, or you are a coach who wants to coach leaders at a higher level, or if you're a business owner or high-level leader that needs to connect with other high-level leaders, and you want the tools and skills to do that, then I have something for you. I'm starting my second cohort of the executive coaching certification. This is a 3-month live program where you learn the credibility, the tools, and the presence to sit nose to nose with high-level people and really dig deep with them, form immense connections with them, gain their trust, and get everything that you need to coach them on a powerful, deep level. Now, there's a lot of stuff about coaching out there, for sure, but a lot of it's on the behavioral level. This deep coaching works on the identity level, which is what senior execs crave, but they have difficulty finding. Because this type of coaching requires growth in you so that you can have the presence, the relationship with yourself, so that you can tell them exactly what they need. Not help them with accountability, not helping them with the priorities. They're already high achievers. They have everything that they need. What coaches that try to coach executives lack is they lack that depth. And that's exactly what this program gives. So if this is of at all interest to you, go to the URL rmichaelanderson.com/certification, or somewhere on this page or the show notes, there is a link, and read more about it. We got amazing case studies. If you have any questions, drop me a note. But last year was the first year I ran this, and it went better than my wildest dreams. And the coaches who I'm still in contact with are coaching leaders at a higher level than they thought that they were capable of. And they're doing this every day. So if you have any interest in doing this, check it out, drop me a note, and see if it's right for you. Because it's an amazing investment, both in you and your own growth, as well as your career growth. And maybe I'll see you there.